Don't get excited just yet. Today we are diving deep into the world of the Crane 3S. And for all of you that have little micro cine packages like mine, you may find this video beneficial as well as equally heartbreaking. Okay, so maybe you're someone like me that saw this guy's video balancing this ginormous rig on the Crane 3S. After I saw that, I was sold. I was super pumped about finally having a gimbal that I could throw my fully kitted out Pocket 4K on and also be able to use it with my Ready rig. For those of you that don't know, the Crane 3S is advertised as being able to hold up to 14.3 pounds. Now, when my Pocket 4K is fully kitted out with a V-Mount battery, monitor, and SIM-on Zeiss Cine lens, it comes in roughly around 11.5 pounds, so I thought I was good to go. So right out of the box, after the balancing was complete and I turned the unit on, that's when things got a little interesting. Hear it? This is vibrating like crazy. Now you can easily calibrate the motors and the strength directly within the app, as well as update the firmware via Bluetooth. So once I adjusted the motor calibration and the strength, it did quiet down. But once you pick it up and throw it into undersling mode, that is where the trouble really starts. See? Fine. It's fine up here. Go down here and we start wobbling. And if I let go, you can tell. There it goes. There it goes. There it is. What the heck? See? It's like as soon as it gets off some kind of axis, but it's so balanced. I've balanced it so many times. It's super balanced. I don't know. I don't get it. And this is awkward too. I gotta go like this to set it down. And when I started digging around online, I found that most users with this same vibrating problem in undersling mode were all either Pocket 4K or Pocket 6K users, with the few random red users sprinkled in there as well. Now here's the thing, I do think a lot of these vibrating issues in undersling mode has a lot to do with the gimbal's firmware, but I also think a lot of it is just straight up the form factor of the Pocket 4K and 6K's body. The weird rectangle shape of the Pocket 4K and Pocket 6K is what really makes it impossible to get a proper roll axis balance on the gimbal. Because once that little camera is fully kitted out with a V-mount and a big old cine lens, what you pretty much get is a build that resembles a crucifix, like a cross, right? Whereas most cine rigs are nice little squares or rectangles that go this way, rather than like the P4K and P6K that are rectangles that go this way. So check out this BTS and you'll see what I mean when I'm talking about problems balancing the roll axis. Ultimately, I just settled on taking off the arm extender just to completely strip down my rig, get rid of the monitor, get rid of the V-mount, swap to a smaller lens, and take off that arm extender that you can use for larger loads on the gimbal. Just a little side note about that extension arm with the Crane 3S. If I was you, I would be extremely careful when taking that thing on and off, because dealing with the wiring it can be a little bit of an issue. Now there's some pretty huge drawbacks to not being able to use the V-mount on the gimbal. I mean, the first one just being the straight disappointment that, you know, I bought this thing just thinking I'd be able to use the V-mount battery on it. I mean, you guys have seen here on the channel where with my old gimbal, the Tilt Gravity G2X, or even rigged that thing up with a V-mount on the very bottom of the gimbal handle. Here's the main issue. The Pocket 4K drains battery life like crazy. You all know this. And maybe you're thinking, well, Justin, just have the gimbal power the camera. Well, here's some issues with that. There's only Thunderbolt 3 inputs on this Crane 3S, otherwise known as USB-C, right? Now, maybe somewhere out there does exist a Weipu to USB-C cable, or maybe even a Canon dummy battery to USB-C cable. But here's the thing, even if those cables do exist, the Pocket 4K, when recording in 4K DCI Blackmagic RAW, it is going to drain the battery life of this gimbal like crazy. So I guess it's a good thing that I own 6 Canon batteries for the Pocket 4K, and you know, maybe if I'm lucky, I'll get 90 minutes record time out of that. So the second downside to not being able to use the V-mount with the Crane 3S is the fact that the V-mount at one point was powering my monitor, right? But now, as you'll see, this has to have two Sony MPF batteries on the monitor to run this particular monitor, and that just ends up putting a lot of weight onto my Magic Arm. Luckily, this is a red Magic Arm. It is probably the strongest Magic Arm I've ever owned. It blows out ICANN and SmallRig and Manfrotto's Magic Arms out of the water, right? But I'm just saying, it just adds that little extra weight, not only to the monitor on the Magic Arm, but also just to, you know, over here where I'm holding it. Okay, so the third issue with not being able to use V-mount on this gimbal is now I am limited to what lenses I can use on the gimbal, because my little motor for the Tilta Nucleus Nano, it needs that extra juice from the D-tap in order to properly focus heavier cine lenses. I've done an entire video on this. I'll put a link down in the description below. Now, Zhiyun does include some micro USB to USB-C cables, but the problem is it's not supplying enough power to the Tilta Nucleus Nano motor. It still wasn't enough to properly pull focus on my big Zeiss Hollywood lens. That's the 28mm f2. So I did end up swapping out for the smaller gimbal monster. I call it the 35mm f2.8. So now I am restricted to what lenses I can use on this gimbal, because of the problems with not being able to mount the camera with the V-mount battery. Okay, so while we're still on the topic of the Tilta Nucleus Nano, I have another issue with this gimbal altogether, and it's the fact that I cannot remove their little focus wheel down here, right? And you'll notice where I have set up my Tilta Nucleus Nano wheel. Now, this is pretty obnoxious because you can't remove this wheel, and Zhiyun makes you buy the focus motor separately. And I did buy like the Pro kit that comes with the smart handle, so I don't know. I'm already a Tilta Nucleus Nano owner. I'm happy with the Nano. If you ask me, I think it's the best product that Tilta makes. I have no desire to buy into Zhiyun's focus gear polling system, right? It just sucks because, they do have their focus wheel in the most opportune place, and I do find myself still reaching for their wheel, and so it's just really obnoxious that I can't take theirs off. So there is definitely some compromises I had to make to get my Pocket 4K rig to work with this Crane 3S, but I do want to point out that it's still actually a pretty beefy rig, right? I mean, all things considered, I still have this big old SmallRig half cage on here. I still do have a more gimbal-friendly matte box with ND in it. The little baby Tilta Nucleus Nano motor. I have a really beefy SmallRig 15mm Rod Baseplate with 15mm rods. Usually the SSD goes on here, but it's over on the desktop right now, but also the SSD Mount as well. So it's still a pretty beefed out rig at the end of the day. So here is some COVID-friendly test footage. Now, this is by no means beauty B-roll or anything like that. This is just straight out of the box, first time outside with it, doing all handheld, no ready rig was used here, and just some straight up test footage with this exact slimmer rig. So Marianne and I are just gonna talk with you guys as we watch this. This is just straight out of the box. So here's some just going up the stairs. This is in pan follow mode here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a pretty impressive fly up shot.
I mean, in terms of like not noticing like foot movement and stuff.
Right, because you were running up the stairs with that, right?
Yeah. And here's going down the stairs. And, oh, this one I put it in vortex mode, which makes the camera shoot straight down. And notice how it just kind of floats down. There's no step movement. There's that, I tripped at the bottom. That's what that kick was. And then spinning back around. And then I think I changed the vortex back to pan follow mode so we could go back up the stairs again. So I just wanted to show like if there's foot movement or any bobs or anything. There was more that time than the first time, I think. But yeah, I mean, all in all,
I just think, considering the fact that you are literally running up and down the stairs.
Yeah, I wouldn't say running, but I think more like, definitely was a light jog. It wasn't like full-on running.
But something that would severely bounce the camera.
For sure, for sure. But, okay, so we can go to this oneer shot that I tried to get. And, okay, so we started on the feet here. I think somewhere around right here. Yeah, so we started on the feet. So this is in undersling mode here. Now this entire one shot was in the pan follow mode. So it got a little janky there towards the end, going from undersling to normal.
I think where this gimbal really shines is in these following shots. The half moons aren't bad either. That actually wasn't bad if you were in the frame. Framing wise, some of these shots are kind of shitty, but actually looking what the gimbal is doing is pretty decent. Now that got a little rocky because I was running over huge tree roots. But these little things like that, I think it performs quite well. Going from, you know, undersling to normal mode. These half moons are pretty good. And then here, this is when I run out into the street. So now you can tell we're really picking up speed here. Let me mute this. So here's where we really start picking up speed. Yeah, and these.
I mean, there's like a little wobble here and there, but minus those little wobbles, it almost looks like a dolly shot.
Yeah, that one side tracking shot for sure. The half moons I think are really nice, which means you could probably get some really stellar, you know, full 360s. We had a bogey here, so.
This is when I became socially conscious of the fact that we weren't wearing masks.
And the weight was getting to me. I was not able to deal with that.
We forgot about COVID when we went outside.
So yeah, I love these little tracking shots. And then this is a pretty decent. Now this could be a dolly shot too.
And even just the way you rounded that corner, it was really smooth.
So other than the framing, I know framing is an issue here, but you know, that just, it does get heavy. I was doing this all just holding the thing. I wasn't doing this with the Ready Rig. I'm pretty sure that with the Ready Rig and with the Ready Rig combo, this thing could be stellar. Look at that, you know? I mean, look at this. And then this is cool. The pans are a little too quick, but I think that just comes with some practice and finesse. I'm just used to the glide cam being so, you know, connected to my wrist.
Well, I think that's kind of the main thing to consider when you look at this footage is that this is straight out of the box. You've literally never used it this way before.
Yeah.
So this is totally unpracticed, unrehearsed. And I think that considering that, the footage is super smooth for really not knowing the nuances of the device and not really being practiced with your technique.
Right. Yeah, this is straight up out of the box. I mean, before this, I was just dealing with the vibrating issues when it was a heavier rig inside the house. You know, this is like the first actual test footage with it.
And I'm impressed.
I mean, even
this is my favorite of all of it.
I love
this. Is so smooth.
Yeah, it really does have a nice, when you're following or when you're leading the subject like that. Oh, and then I hit the wall.
Literally.
I slammed into the wall.
I am still a little disappointed that I'm not able to use it in the way that I originally envisioned I would, you know, like a fully rigged out rig. And the main reason is because when you're working on set, you don't have time to completely, you know, tear apart your whole rig just for the gimbal. You know, in the past when I've been on shoots like that, I try to either schedule the gimbal stuff at the very beginning of the day or the very end of the day, just so you're not like having to build and rebuild and all of this back and forth throughout the day. So it is a little disappointing. And also because of all that power issue. I mean, literally the V-Mount powers everything. My focus motor, the camera, the monitor, you know, I mean, I'm hoping that if more people make videos like this one and keep emailing Zhiyun, and maybe eventually they will update the firmware to some firmware that actually fixes the mad vibrating issue that happens in undersling mode. I don't know. It seems that they just keep sending out the same canned email. So hopefully they'll take note of this stuff. And just for those wondering, I do have the latest firmware update at the time this video was made, which is firmware 1.78. One last thing I want to say is about the app. Now, a lot of people I've seen online are really trashing the Zhiyun app, but honestly, I'm kind of digging it. I think it's really nice that you can update the gimbal straight through Bluetooth. That's really cool. The manual on there is really nice. It's way better than the manual that they put in the box. And I really like the fact that you can completely control the gimbal's pan and tilt from your phone. I don't know. Coming from the Tilta app, it's like way better. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on the app. Okay, so ultimately, at first, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty bummed out for the first couple of days that I sold my Devon Graham glide cam for this Crane 3S as a replacement, right? But, you know, once I settled down and started slimming down my rig and started messing around with it, I actually did start really liking this gimbal. I mean, at the end of the day, it performs way better than my old gimbal, which was the Tilt-A-Gravity G2X, and I can actually still get a lot of nice shots with this Crane 3S that I could never get on my Devon Graham Glide Cam, right? The biggest ones being the fact that I can now pull focus, and I can actually use this with my Ready rig, and there will be future videos of me doing so.
Hey, if you're a fan of the channel and like the support, there's a couple different ways you can do that. The first and easiest way is to just hit that subscribe button and be sure to hit the bell so you get the latest videos as soon as they're dropped. But if you want to go above and beyond that and be a part of a daily filmmaking conversation, then I invite you to join the Dog Times community over on Patreon. That is where once a week I release an exclusive members-only video breaking down projects, talking gear, and sharing real-world experiences as a DIY indie filmmaker in Los Angeles. But my favorite part about the Patreon is the conversations happening over on Discord. That is where you will be connected with like-minded filmmakers and have instant access to learning ways to improve your own skills so you feel more confident about working on set as a professional. So welcome to the Dog Times community, and I'll chat with you soon.